She stood quietly in her worn khaki jacket, clutching the folded program with her son's name printed bold across the cover. Two guards approached, voices low but firm. "Ma'am, this section is for VIPs only." Heads turned, whispers spread. She rose without protest because 10 minutes later 6 Navy SEALs would walk in. The morning sun shimmered across rows of white chairs, polished to perfection. The air smelled of roses, champagne, and money. This wasn't just a graduation, it was a competition of pride. Parents in pearls and tailored suits whispered about colleges and careers, about who mattered most. In the middle of the fourth row sat June Maddox, calm and composed. Her jacket, old and khaki, looked wildly out of place among silks and satin. The seams were faded, but the woman inside it sat like she belonged there, because she did. On her lap lay the program with one name underlined in blue: Ethan Maddox, valedictorian. June's hands were rough from years of labor, but they rested softly on the paper. This day wasn't a luxury. It was survival finally rewarded. 2 seats away, a coral-clad woman lowered her designer sunglasses. "They really let anyone sit up here now?" she whispered. The woman next to her gave a polite, venomous chuckle. Within minutes, 2 suited security guards approached. They didn't shout, they didn't need to. Their politeness was colder than a shove. "Ma'am, this section's for VIP families only. We'll need you to relocate." June lifted her eyes, steady and unblinking. "My son is the valedictorian." "Yes, ma'am," one guard replied. "But there have been last-minute seating changes." A murmur rolled through the crowd. Cameras tilted toward her. June didn't fight. She gathered her program, rose, and followed them in silence. Her chair, taped neatly with her name, was filled by the coral woman before she'd even stepped away. They led her back, one row, then another, until she sat beneath the edge of the canopy where the sun pooled on her boots. From there she could still see the stage. Her back was straight, her expression calm, her heart burning quietly behind her jacket. They thought they'd pushed her aside. They had no idea who they'd just moved. 15 years earlier, June Maddox had been a mechanic in a small Colorado town. Grease under her nails, work boots on the floor, a coffee mug that always smelled faintly of oil and rain. She wasn't special, not by anyone's standards, except to one man. Marco, her husband, a welder with a laugh too loud for quiet rooms. They built a life out of hard days and late nights. Their son, Ethan, was born in a trailer park with more heart than comfort. He grew up surrounded by wrenches, school books, and the hum of determination. Then, one Tuesday, Marco didn't come home. A lift cable snapped in the garage where he worked. June arrived too late to say goodbye. The company denied negligence. The town offered condolences, and the silence that followed was deafening. She was left with a 5-year-old boy, an old truck, and the kind of grief that never really ends. She worked double shifts, learned to fix anything that broke, and refused every pitying glance. When she tried to move to a better school district, the system told her spots are full. When she applied for loans, the bank said, "Need collateral." Every door closed, but she kept walking. One evening, a veteran came into her shop with a busted radiator. On his dashboard sat a flyer, Civil Defense and Emergency Response Training Program. June asked about it. 2 weeks later, she applied. Most recruits were ex-military or first responders. June was neither, but she had grit. During training, 6 Navy SEALs joined the compound for joint exercises. They called her Guide, half teasing at first, then with respect. She saw things others didn't. She rerouted teams through side alleys that weren't on maps. During a blackout drill, one SEAL collapsed from heatstroke. June found him first, carried him to safety, and kept him breathing until medics arrived. When training ended, the 6 men handed her a green patch, stitched with one word: Guide. They told her she'd saved a life. She tucked it inside her jacket, never spoke of it again. Years passed. Ethan grew, studied hard, and earned his way into that school. On merit, not money. June stayed quiet, fixing cars, paying tuition one oil change at a time. She never sought attention, only moments like this one, Her son on a stage, his dream finally real. And that morning, as she dressed for graduation, she'd sewn the patch back inside her jacket, over her heart, just in case she needed strength again. The ceremony began with the principal's speech, rehearsed and hollow. Parents clapped at all the right moments, some checking their watches. From her new seat in the 10th row, June sat still, eyes never leaving the stage. From up front, Mrs. Bellamy crossed her legs gracefully, already imagining her photo in the school newsletter. Around her, parents whispered about summer houses and scholarships. No one spoke to the woman sitting alone under the fluttering edge of the canopy. June's hands tightened around the program. She could see Ethan standing near the stage, tall, composed, unaware that his mother had been moved from her seat. She hoped he wouldn't notice. Today was his day, not hers. The choir began to sing, the sound carrying across the lawn. June's throat tightened, but she held her composure. The guards who'd escorted her earlier stood near the gate now, faces unreadable. The injustice lingered, invisible but heavy. Then the wind shifted. Somewhere behind the crowd, gravel crunched under synchronized footsteps. June didn't turn, but something deep in her chest told her change was coming. The crowd's attention broke for the first time when 6 men in dark suits appeared at the edge of the lawn. They weren't school officials, and they didn't look like guests. They moved with purpose, measured, calm, each step perfectly in sync. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Who are they? Secret Service? Reporters? They weren't either. They were soldiers. June felt her heart stutter once, then steady. She knew those postures. She knew those faces. The men didn't look at the audience. They didn't glance at each other. They walked straight down the central aisle, unhurried but unstoppable. Every head turned. Every conversation stopped. When they reached the front, one stepped forward. A man with graying temples and a scar beneath his eye. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a small piece of green cloth, and handed it to the nearest usher. Embroidered in faded thread was a single word: guide. The principal blinked, confused. Can I help you, gentlemen? The man nodded once. We came to honor someone. The ushers looked uncertain. The guards who'd moved June earlier suddenly looked like boys in borrowed authority. The 6 men turned slowly, facing the audience. Their leader spoke again, voice calm but commanding. We're looking for June Maddox. June froze. The whisper of her name rolled through the crowd like a tide. She's in the back, someone murmured. Every head turned. Every camera lifted. And for the first time that morning, June's quiet dignity filled the entire space. The lead SEAL gestured toward her. That woman, he said, taught 6 of us how to stay alive when every plan failed. We called her guide. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for her. Gasps echoed through the crowd. The guards who'd escorted her earlier stood stiff, faces pale. She doesn't wear rank, the man continued, but she earned our respect in the field without ever stepping on one. June sat frozen, emotion flooding her chest. The SEALs turned sharply, saluting her. 6 men, standing in formation, in the middle of a high school graduation. Silence. Then the principal lowered his microphone, at a loss for words. Parents who judged her now sat still, eyes wide. Even Mrs. Bellamy's smirk dissolved, replaced by shock. No one moved, not even Ethan, until one of the SEALs spoke again, his voice steady but softer. We were told this event was to honor excellence. That's her specialty. The patch was placed gently on the podium. This green canvas glowed in the sunlight. And just like that, every lie about who belonged in the front row unraveled. Ethan stepped forward from the line of graduates, his gown swaying in the breeze. He looked at his mother, his guide, then at the 6 men who stood like sentinels behind the stage. He didn't pick up his prepared speech. Instead, he unfolded the microphone and spoke quietly. I had something written, he began, voice steady. It had jokes, quotes, a story about my math teacher's cat, a ripple of nervous laughter. But none of that matters now. He turned toward the crowd. My mother has been pushed aside her entire life. She was pushed aside today. Yet she never stopped showing up. She's the reason I'm standing here, and the reason 6 heroes are standing there. The principal shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Bellamy looked down. Ethan continued, his tone rising with each word. This school talks about respect, honor, and leadership. You've seen it. You've applauded it. But today, respect stood in the back row, wearing a faded jacket. Silence fell again, deep and electric. She doesn't ask for recognition, but I'll give it anyway. Her name is June Maddox. My mother, my teacher, my hero. The audience rose slowly at first, then completely. Applause thundered through the courtyard. The seals saluted again, this time joined by Ethan. June didn't stand. She couldn't. She just pressed a trembling hand against the inside of her jacket, over the patch that had waited years for this moment. When the ceremony ended, the crowd surged forward for photos and congratulations. But one corner of the courtyard stayed quiet. June remained seated, still processing the weight of what had just happened. The 6 seals approached. No speeches, no cameras. One by one, they saluted her. The last man handed her a small green patch, almost identical to the one she already owned. But this one had a new line stitched beneath the word guide in gold thread. Honorary command. June looked at it for a long moment, eyes glistening. You didn't have to, she whispered. The man smiled faintly. You taught us what leadership looks like. We had to. When they left, the guards from earlier approached awkwardly, offering apologies that sounded small against the echo of applause. June nodded once, accepting silently. Ethan joined her, his diploma still in hand. We made it, he whispered. June smiled, brushing a smudge from his robe. No, kid, she said softly. You made it. That night, they didn't go to any fancy dinner. They stopped by a small roadside diner, ordered burgers, and ate in the truck with the windows down. The graduation cap sat on the dashboard. The patch rested on her lap. A week later, a local newspaper ran the photo. Ethan on stage, June in the background, the seals standing like guardians behind her. The headline read, The Woman in the Jacket. By the end of summer, the school quietly added a new tradition. One empty chair, front and center, reserved at every graduation. No plaque, no name, just a folded khaki jacket resting across it. When students asked why, teachers would smile and say, It's for someone who never needed an invitation to belong.